Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Sleeping Saturday. Welcome to Q&A Day. If you're listening to this on Facebook, this is our podcast. This is Wisdom of the Sages podcast. You can listen to it wherever you get podcasts. YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher. Where else do people get? Apple Podcasts. Yeah. And you can binge listen to the Bhagavatam, the essence, the creme de la creme of Vedic wisdom, and really how to apply it to your life. And we really tease that out on Q&A Day. People write in their questions. They write into Mara, our producer, at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. And we too will read your question and try our best to give an answer from this sacred lineage, from this tradition of Bhakti Yoga, which goes back many, many thousands of years. We were just talking about that yesterday. It's not a new thing. It's not like, oh, this is a newfound cult. Yes, it's a cult. Everything's a cult. We had that conversation last time, right?
When did we have that conversation? I think maybe.
Didn't we have this conversation the other day? It's all a cult.
Was that
the whole material world's a cult. You just got to choose your cults wisely. This is a cult of devotion.
I don't know if that's the best branding, though. Maybe we.
You know what? Sometimes you got to slap them right back in the face with what they're trying to slap you down with. So I'm just like, I'm in a cult. I like the cult. It's not a dangerous cult. It's not a destructive cult. It's a fun cult. It's a fun, loving, spiritual, devotional cult of people who want to raise the bar. Want to join my cult? It's cool. It's all how you pitch something. If there's one thing this pandemic brought upon us is the whole material world is just subjective spins on people's subjective reality. It's a spin, isn't it?
What's a spin?
Everything that people are saying is a spin. One news source says this, another news source says this. It's like a divorce. This person's right. This person's right. You can't get objective truth. You know what the objective truth is? The objective truth is I'm tiny. I'm part of something bigger. We're meant to find connection with our source. That's how we become happy. That's okay. We got to find a source of objective truth. And the Vedas say this is the source of objective truth. It's not a what do we call that? It's not a pearls of wisdom. It's not, Vedic truth isn't a pearl of wisdom or a nugget of wisdom. It is the string that's tying wisdom cultures together.
Okay.
It's not creating walls between these cultures. It's tying them all together. A pearl of wisdom, is that what they say? A pearl of wisdom? A jewel of pearl?
People
Okay.
say pearl of wisdom.
Good morning, Kaustubha.
Good morning.
Pearl of wisdom. It's the thread, isn't it? That ties it all together.
It can function that way, sure.
And also, it's one of these things too, like people get yoga and they want to understand the culture of yoga. And it's almost like disjointed. I feel like the Bhagavatam, this epic that we study, it ties it all together. What does it have to do with a physical practice? What does it have to do with Ayurveda? What does it have to do with cleansing, detox, Indian dance, pujas, worships, mysticism, jewels, peacock thrones? What does it have to do with any of this stuff? Let's go to the questions. Any more announcements, Mara?
Yeah, we have a Bhakti recovery meeting today at 9:30. And then tomorrow at the Bhakti Recovery Group meeting, it's an open meeting, and the musician Kaylee Woods is giving a little talk as well, and that's open to everyone.
All right. Did you ever get into jewels, Kaustubha? It's a whole Vedic science.
I never have.
The study of gemstones. Well, you should think about it. You should think about it.
I don't need to think about it. I just
My astrologer
chant
says
Hare Krishna.
yellow sapphire, or blue sapphires are very healthy for me.
Yeah, that's not my thing. I'm not saying it's not real. I'm just saying, I'm not going to go out and spend lots of money on jewels to have some kind of subtle, to have some kind of subtle, improve something subtly, I'd rather just go for, Bhagavatam. That's where I'm at.
The Bhagavatam can help for sure.
Okay,
I'm with you.
But jewels
At the
are
same
far
time,
more
there's a
important.
reason why crowns exist.
I
The
know,
Nava,
I
right? The
know.
9 planets. There's
Yeah,
9 spokes on a crown. You put a jewel on each crown,
see-
and then as attracting.
Like sometimes you see brahmanas, they're wearing the rings, they got gold rings, and they got all the
Bra.
the different gemstones which have different astrological effects. And again, I'm not saying that, but when I look at the sadhus, they're not wearing all that stuff generally, Like
Sometimes they do.
so
Sometimes they
I'd
wear
rather
gemstones.
yeah. But for the most part, so I'd rather follow in the footsteps of the sadhus than the brahmanas in that sense.
I mean, you don't think Maharaj Yudhisthira was a sadhu? You don't think he wore
he was a
jewels?
king. He was a king. He wasn't.
I know,
had
but he was a
particular role.
sadhu. He's like the very definition of a sadhu.
Okay.
I'm gonna
So
have to-
what I'm using sadhu in a bit of a different
I'm
sense.
going to go head to head with you on
I'll
this
go
one.
head to head with you. You want to go? Let's go. I'm using sadhu in a bit of a different sense. That in other words, sadhu meaning the person, defining it more as that person who's like exclusively devoted to their, spiritual path and practice. Not someone, Yudhishthira he had kingly responsibilities. It was his position to wear that crown. There were reasons, even beyond the astrological reasons, right? There were like social reasons why he would sit on the throne and wear the crown and all that. I'm not in that position, so I don't need to wear jewels or what to speak of a crown.
I think you
sit on a
you
throne.
have a lot of good qualities, and I think that you might benefit wearing a crown around New York
I
City.
appreciate that.
That's all I'm saying.
I'll take that. I'll tell
It's
you
not
what.
going to
Raghunath.
hurt.
I'll consider that today, and we'll talk later about it. Thank you.
Arjuna was a sadhu. He had jewels in his sword,
Yeah,
jewels on his chariot.
they were the Kshatriyas. They were
Okay.
rulers.
Yeah.
I'm not.
All right. I wonder if the Western emperors or like the kings or the Queen of England, I wonder if her jewels had to do with their astrological chart, or
I'd
if they're just
imagine
random
there's a
pretty jewels.
Maybe it got lost at some point. Maybe not. My guess is that whoever crafted that crown was probably in on it. They knew the deal.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, let's get into some questions. What do you say?
Should I read it first? Well, we have
Yeah,
a
why don't you read
series
first,
of
sir?
questions from Karuna, 8 years old, who lives in Lebanon, right, and who is our daily
We got an
Zoomer.
8-year-old. If you're new to the show, we have an 8-year-old that listens every day from Lebanon, and she's got some good questions. I thought.
Yeah, I'm.
Want to tackle them one at a time?
I think
They're-
one at a
we
time
keep it
is the only
simple.
way we can do it. Yeah. So we can both comment
Okay.
on this, okay? So this is 1, 2,
Okay.
3, 4 questions. So the first one is this. She writes, Hare Krishna, Raghunath Kaustubha, and Mara, thank you for making the show. I love it. Thank you, Mara. Mara. Thank you, Mara, but also thank you, Karuna.
Thank you, Mayor,
Right.
for making the show.
Thank you, Mara. Thank you, Raghunath. And thank you, Karuna. Here's the first question. You ready, Raghu? Are you
Ready.
focused? What are you doing? Oh, you got one. of those-
Totally focused. I'm doing some
Okay.
marma stuff on my hands right
Okay,
now.
I thought that was a banana. It's you're getting ready to eat. Gotcha.
I was like worshiping the wooden banana.
Yeah. Okay, here's the question. Why did Krishna show us an example of doing his duty when he could just tell us to do it? Right? Like he's in a superior position, right? But he set an example. Why did he do that?
Yeah, why
he
did
could
he
have
do
just
that?
told us.
You're right. He could have, but you follow, but you lead by example, just like a parent would. Karuna, does that make sense? You could have told us everything, but you want to see that also Krishna. He's also he follows this dharma as well,
He does.
right?
He's-
He's got responsibilities.
Yeah. You know,
What would you say?
that's part of his leela that he plays out. You know, he plays it out like that. That he sets the example. But you know, it commonly there's that adage, example is better than precept, right? That if you want to communicate a message, generally it communicates deeper. It goes in, it sinks in more if you set an example rather than just say it to someone. As you see Karuna, she's fortunate. She's got like all these good examples in her life, like her parents and all that. You know, they're like really devoted people, and they probably live, you know, very healthy lifestyles and all that. And so and you're just growing up in that family, so like the trust is there, you know, full on trust, you know, for mother, for father, and all that. And if they tell you to do something, Karuna's a good girl. She's got that faith and that trust, and she'll do it. But you know, generally, when someone says, and hey, part of the reason why that trust may be there is because they set such a good example, right? But generally, setting the example is more powerful. That, you know, when there's a certain level of faith, then one can express things just through words. But generally, that example is important. You know, Krishna actually addresses this question in the 3rd chapter of the Gita, right? Where Arjuna, he was a warrior. That was his duty, right? That it was, in other words, just like say a police officer in our modern context has a duty. When someone's committing a crime, when someone's harming another person, the police officer is duty bound to step forward and address the situation. Why are they duty bound? Because they've taken an oath, right? They've gone through the training, they've taken the oath, they've accepted the paycheck, you know. All of this has made them duty bound to respond in a certain circumstance. And now Arjuna, you know, all those jewels you were talking about that he's wearing, right, Raghunath? They didn't come from nowhere, right? They came from people's taxes. People were paying taxes for that. He had accepted, you know, he had accepted that role, you know, and the responsibilities and the duties that came with it. And Krishna was saying, now is your time to step up on that battlefield of Kurukshetra. Now is your time to step up. But Arjuna was abandoning that duty. He wanted to walk away from it. He was thinking, if I could just leave this duty behind, if I could just go find some quiet place and meditate, maybe I could find peace and happiness, and I could transcend this state of anxiety and suffering that I'm in. And Krishna reminded him, no, you have a duty, you know. And he said that those duties that we have in life, the duties that we accept, they're meant to help make us, there's a social reason for them, right? Like, okay, Arjuna had to protect people, but they also are good for the person that's doing the duty, right? They help us transform by saying, I'm not going to just follow whatever my mind and senses are telling me what to, you know, maybe I just want to stay in bed, but duty calls me to get up, to rise up and to control myself. And that's really the beginning of yoga, you know. But, you know, carrying out one's duty, it's the beginning of controlling one's mind and controlling one's senses. It's the beginning of yoga. So in the 3rd chapter, Krishna is encouraging Arjuna, you need to step up and do your duty. You know, if people abandon their duties, they don't progress. And then he says, Arjuna, even there are people that are so evolved, spiritually evolved, that they don't have to perform any duty because there's nothing that they need to improve in themselves. They're already there. He says, but even they still do their duty to set the example for others. And then Krishna says himself, let me find the text. He says, O son of Pritha, O Arjuna, there is no work prescribed for me, right? He doesn't need any prescription to improve himself. He says, there's no work prescribed for me within all the 3 planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. For if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Arjuna, certainly all men would follow my path. Right? So that's why he says he's setting the example. He said, if I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put into ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population. I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. So he felt that he needed to set the example so that others would follow it. Rather than just saying the words, example is better than precept. All right.
There you go.
All right.
I think that's good. Great point.
That's the first one. Anything to add to that, Raghu? Anything more?
You know, I think there's sometimes a Judeo-Christian culture would say, well, you know, your God, Krishna, because Krishna acts a little rascally compared to what
Oh,
we
yeah.
think of a Judeo-Christian concept of God. He has many, many girlfriends. He sneaks out with them in the middle of the night. He's the God of love. And when we interpret that in a mundane way, it seems like God is not following these the Ten Commandments, or people will say, well, this God of yours is a philanderer. He's a liar. He's a thief. Krishna's position is also very unique. So we can't just take it at face value. And that's why we are meant to study Krishna's Leela in a tradition that explains the depth behind those pastimes. And we understand that Krishna doesn't have thousands of girlfriends because he's trying to break moral codes. Krishna is actually the husband of every living entity. So when Krishna is the most moral, he's the source of morality. But in our endeavor in the yoga system is we, being Prakriti or feminine, we are trying to reconnect with the divine masculine. We are all feminine, and therefore what is apparently sort of impious behavior, inappropriate behavior, all has resolution when you study in tradition. And that's why it's a big thing in our tradition. Our Param Guru, or our Guru's Guru, he made it very clear that you can't just read these books without the authority of a spiritual lineage, or what's going to happen is it's going to be really, really confusing. It's going to be like an outsider looking in. Like when me and Kaustubha were young, we were into hardcore music, and it was like a whole community of outcasts and weirdos and punk rockers. Now we got how things worked in there. It seemed really crazy. It seemed insane. It was the beginning of moshing and slam dancing. But if an outsider was to go by and drive by, they'd think, who are these kids? This is like chaotic. This is incredibly violent. It's, are these kids all, psychopaths? But they weren't psychopaths. Kaustubha was there. He was a very nice kid.
Some were psychopaths.
There were a few psychopaths. We will admit to that. A few psychopaths amongst us. But for the most part, it was like an organized chaos, slam dancing, mosh pits, and stage diving. It was an organized type of chaos. There was like ethics within it. And the nicest kids sometimes would dress really bizarre. And you can't judge a book by a cover. So from the outside looking in, it seemed chaotic and crazy. But in the inside, you have more understanding. Whenever there's some devotion to something, there's a more internal understanding than just trying to speculate from the outside. And that's how we have to hear these Krishna Leela. And that's why we understand how Krishna, even though he doesn't act in a way that perhaps Judeo-Christian culture can't understand, we hear from the lineage. And that's why the book, if you really want to hear Krishna's Leela, Krishna book is great, because it's the Leela tied in with the purports and the commentary, so people don't get lost in the world of the God of love, which can be really interpreted in a poor way.
If you read Krishna book, you have Krishna's Leela, or his pastimes in Vrindavan when he was young, and then you have his pastimes in Dwarka, where he was more living the Dharma, right? like showing more setting the example of Dharma, right?
Yeah.
So in other words, I think what you're saying is that Karuna should not follow the example of stealing butter, right?
Yes.
He shouldn't do that. Like if
Lying
Karuna were to break into...
Don't lie to your mother just because Krishna did.
If she were to go run to the house across the street and start stealing their butter, it would probably make them upset. And then she'd say, well, Krishna did it and he sets the example. That wouldn't work, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't lie to your mother. Don't steal the butter. And what else did Krishna do? And
and don't have lots of girlfriends.
Don't have lots of girlfriends or boyfriends. Leave that one to Krishna. Okay, what else? Here's her next question. She says, when I was reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, I thought that how many humans are on this earth, but are there more humans coming? Like, we got a lot of humans here. Are there more humans? Are we going to overpopulate?
Yeah.
Want to answer
that? Well, okay, we can get started on that. Well, it's like, it's funny because a lot of times people speak about overpopulation, right? Like there's too many people, and it's there's too many people in the world. I know that Srila Prabhupada, he had to he on several occasions he didn't actually buy into that. He felt there's actually so much land. If we just weren't greedy, and if we just, organized ourselves properly, there's plenty for everyone, tons of open space out there.
Fly across America. There's tons of space.
Tons of space. Yeah. And if,
right? We're all just congested in the cities.
and these things like, people want to eat meat. And so they have to grow all of this food to feed the animals. So they take up tons and tons and tons of land to grow food to feed animals to be able to eat that animal. If they would just use that land to grow vegetables and grains to feed humans, you could feed so many more humans, right? What to speak of waste and so many things, right?
If you Google search or YouTube search permaculture reforesting deserts, it's amazing what comes up. When you can reforest deserts just by simple permaculture techniques, there's plenty of, and you can have permaculture techniques wherever you live. You don't have to live in the Amazon to grow things. You could actually reforest deserts. Wherever you live, you can grow your own food. It's like simple. Okay. It's a great spiritual practice.
Even the Sahara Desert, you could turn that into
You can reforest it. You just gotta bring in the mulch, right, Mara? Okay. Just bring in the mulch.
All right. So that bit's getting back to Karuna's question. Sometimes people, when they speak about these things, they say, if there's reincarnation, how are we getting all the, populations increasing? Where are all the more people come from? But the fact is, there's unlimited living beings, even in the smallest, even if you say like I live next to Central Park, how many living beings are in Central Park? We can't even conceive of it. There's so
every
many.
blade of grass is a living being.
Every blade of grass, yeah, every tree, what to speak of insects, and then things that you can only see under microscopes. The life is everywhere. What to speak of beyond this planet? People are so absurd to suggest that there's no life beyond this planet. Come on, Raghunath, I know that you believe that there's life on other planets, don't you?
There's just life on planet Earth, Prabhu. Let's not get hokey and conspiracy theories of life on other planets.
So according to
we never went to the moon.
There's some phrase Prabhupada used to quote where it basically was like, I forget what it is, jiva something, but that life is everywhere, right? The living beings are everywhere. And so the number of human beings that are on Earth, some are checking in, some are checking out, right? Like some are, or we become born as a human being, and then depending on how we live this life, we may take birth as a human being again.
If you think about it, there may be, pretend there was no humans in New York City, in all the 5 boroughs. Okay. There might have been more living entities before that. If every blade of grass is a living being, you're talking about
in other words, before the human settlers came to Manhattan, there may have been more living beings in Manhattan than after the human beings came. Probably.
Exactly, because we dug up the land, we put concrete down.
Like 12 million, it's like nothing, right?
That's nothing. There's millions of blades of grass. Yeah. But just speak of microbes and things like that.
Okay, so
right, let's go forward.
So as I was saying, that say you're a human being now, in your next life, you may be born as a human being, or you may be born as a rabbit, or you may be born as a tree, or you may transcend the whole thing. You may be born on another planet as a Gandharva, Kanara. So many possibilities are there. Bhagavatam begins to fill in, what are these creatures and the different forms that they have and their different qualities, or you may even transcend this universe, and you may return back into the spiritual realm, in your own spiritual form. So that's possible too. So the question was, when I was reading Srimad Bhagavatam, I thought that was how many human beings were on the earth. Like at that time, that's how many there were. But are there always more coming? There's always more coming. They may be coming from other species. They may be coming from other planets. They may be coming from other realms. But there's always more, right?
Sure.
Is that right? Is that good, Rob?
Well, no, there may be less. You know what I mean? There might be like
we could drop
some. As human beings, we could drop a bomb and wipe out all the humans. That doesn't mean living entities are going to stop coming. It means other living entities will be there.
Okay.
Taken.
But I think what she says is more like, there's new ones are coming in.
Living beings. I'm not saying not necessarily human beings.
But she's asking about human beings.
Well, right. So not necessarily suppose there's a certain billion of people on the earth. That doesn't mean there's going to be more next year.
No, but
There could
more
be
meaning,
less.
in other words, like more meaning new ones came in. Like if you have a jail and the population at one point is you have 1,000 people in the jail and half of them leave, but 10 more come, it doesn't mean that you have more than you had before, but 10 more came.
Okay,
Right?
sure.
All right. I hope that helps.
All right.
Karuna ji. Now we have a third question.
Here's another
Now-
good question.
Yes. Now, Karuna, she says, I was reading the Narada-Bhakti-Sutra, 8 years old.
She's just reading the Narada-Bhakti-Sutra.
How's this?
My
Guys are
8-year-old is not
reading
reading that. He won't even sit down. My 8-year-old won't even sit down with kirtan with me.
What do you watch? A cartoon of the Narada-Bhakti-Sutra? Probably not.
Anyway,
Okay.
can we marry my son off? Can we marry Tarun off to?
She's not ready for that, Raghu.
Karuna.
She's already said. She's not ready for that. So she says,
Right.
I was reading the Narada. So what's the Narada-Bhakti-Sutra, Raghu? Just so people that aren't familiar.
There, Narada is the authority on bhakti. He's a sage.
Mhm.
I think he's got this position where he's a Jivan Mukta. He's like a liberated being, and he sometimes you'll hear about Narada. He comes in and out of different pastimes. He's still considered a living being, like still in this form, and he comes and he distributes transcendental wisdom.
He does.
He's a unique jiva, like a nitya siddha, an eternally liberated person. Who give people information, who give them a GPS how to reconnect the spirit with the divine.
And so he
He's the
has
original yogi.
a collection of aphorisms, right, called the Narada-Bhakti-Sutra. Right, Narada-Bhakti. It's his aphorisms about bhakti. It's a beautiful book. So we got to get into a little Narada-Bhakti-Sutra on this show, Raghunath.
Maybe
Right?
we should have on Sweet Baby Krishna night. We could get
A
into
little
it.
Narada-Bhakti-Sutra. Yeah. So little Karuna is reading Narada-Bhakti-Sutra, and one thing that it said is that Krishna dislikes the proud, but likes the humble. Okay. So does Krishna like everyone except the proud, or does he like everyone? Right? Seems like, there's certain people Krishna doesn't like, or does he like everyone? What is it? Does he not like proud people? What's with that, Raghunath? Help us understand.
I think it's also good to zoom way out for people who don't understand the concept of Krishna. Let's just look at our own life. In our own life, when we are arrogant, you can't understand truth that well, because arrogance comes from the very concept like I'm the center, I am all knowing, you're doing everything wrong. So when there's a little bit of humility, for example, you said life can exist on every planet. And I was like, well, what do you know? How dare you say that? What do we know?
dare
Well, all
you.
we know is what we can see. All we know is what we can see. So once I have this arrogant concept like I'm all knowing, then I miss out on what could be. Because I think I already know it. Just like if you talk to a teenager who tend to be a little arrogant, you say, hey, listen, I want you to be careful when you go to this party tonight. Who knows who's going to be there? And I know, Mom. I know. It's okay. I know. You actually don't know. The teenager doesn't know. They think they know, but they've never been to many parties before. We have been. We understand what can go down at a party. So in a state of arrogance, we don't know. So Krishna or truth or the universe being a being, if you want to approach him, you've got to let go of that arrogance. And if you really want to know Krishna, you learn with a humble heart, and then things get revealed more and more, where arrogance repels truth, repels wisdom, repels love, right?
Okay.
Do you want to fall in love with an arrogant person? You can't. Because part of love is revealing your heart in vulnerability to a person.
Or the ability to love, right? That's you started this off by saying that arrogance, or you could say pride, that it blocks knowledge. And I was thinking yes, but I was thinking even deeper. Now you're getting there, that it blocks love, right? That because
It blocks
the
love.
the very nature of love is the concern for the happiness of the other, right? The happiness of the one that you love. Whereas pride is, I looked up the word, and this is one of the definitions: having or showing a high or excessively high opinion of oneself or one's importance. So when I think it's we call this narcissism, right? It's like my importance is all that counts. That is really the opposite of love. Love is like your experience is important to me, and even my own happiness is connected to your happiness. You know, that feeling, that's love. Even love is defined that way in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? Where the happiness of the object of your love is your happiness. We call that love. So pride means everything should be focused on me. It's a love blocker, right?
Sure.
Pride is a love
You know, I
blocker.
think that
How's that for a t-shirt? Pride is a love blocker.
I'd wear that. I'd wear that.
Right.
So I'm serious. I'd even tattoo that on my body,
Okay.
like on my
Which
leg,
part?
or something. like a calf
Your
or a
leg.
thigh
Okay,
tattoo.
nothing too high in the body.
Pride is a love.
You-
Nothing too, you get a leg tattoo.
Okay.
Anyway, so who's the proudest guy you could think of? And I'm not even just to take somebody down, but there's people who are like ridiculously arrogant, and it's one of those things like even that person is probably a man for some, right? It's probably not, when you think of 1,000 men, you don't think of that many women, but it's probably some guy, whoever is ridiculously arrogant, they have an intimate side that someone can get to, their beloved can get to, where they let down their guard and they share with how they really feel.
Right.
That
And if you're proud,
vulnerability.
you can't do
Krishna's
that.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't find that love with an intimate partner. You have to go to that intimate partner and share your vulnerabilities. And that's part of what love is. You do understand a person's strengths, but you understand their vulnerabilities as well. Whereas in our arrogance, we never show our vulnerabilities. So part of love is to be vulnerable. And therefore, the micro, you can see the macro. You want to approach Krishna. You want to approach God. You want to approach truth. You want to approach the universe, etc. There has to be a level of vulnerability. And the beautiful thing is, in bhakti, is Krishna becomes vulnerable to the pure devotee. That's the
because his only purpose is to love. Right?
Hey, side note, squirrel, my friend.
Yeah.
I've been accused recently by somebody of being a narcissist. Do you think I'm a narcissist?
Do I think you're a narcissist? No, not at all.
Yeah.
There you go. Proof right there.
Thank you. All right, there you go. It's over. I'm not a narcissist.
Okay.
Why am I not a narcissist?
Because you care about other people.
I think I do. I do care a lot about people. Jody's here. Jody from Hudson. Jody Brooks.
You
We
care
went for
about
a
her,
Japa walk
right?
today.
Do you care about
I care
her?
about Jody.
Okay, well there you go.
I barely know her. I invited her over to come chant Japa with us, and yeah. See, I'm not a narcissist, Jody. In case you're thinking.
Karuna mentioned that she lost her internet, so she's asking for the summary of the answer. So I believe, and I pulled it up here in the Narada-Bhakti-Sutra.
Karuna, you're going to have to do the playback. Karuna, the world doesn't revolve around you, you 8-year-old narcissist. I'm just kidding. I love you, Karuna. You are so sweet. But you can play it back. We've been on your question the entire show. It's already 40 minutes in.
And
we still have more of your question to answer.
Okay, so you want to keep moving on?
I say we just keep moving. Yesterday, I was talking with my mom about that, what worship you do in each yuga.
Oh, yeah.
Right? There's different yuga cycles, like the 4 seasons. There's 4 yugas. And so she was telling me in the Satya Yuga, they do austerity to please Krishna, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So do they please Krishna, or is Krishna only pleased when we chant?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Well, there's a verse about
your
that.
mother.
There's a lot of verses about that, actually. There's a few verses about that. One of them is in the 12th canto of Bhagavatam. We'll pull it up right now. This is Canto 12, Chapter 3, Text 52. And the verse reads that whatever results are obtained in the Satya Yuga. You want to explain what Satya Yuga is, the different yugas, briefly, Raghu?
Well, it's the springtime. It's the springtime of the yugas, whereas it's still
yugas?
on this planet. I'm sorry. Yugas are a measurement of time.
Okay.
Or a measurement of
very
seasons
long
in time.
Yeah, very long.
Very, very long. Hundreds of thousands of years. And they, according to the Vedic
teachings.
The Vedic concept of reality is these are it's not just Vedic. The Aztecs or the Mayans spoke about this, and that there's different cycles of time. Just like we break down a year.
Sociologist you are, Raghunath. I'm learning more about you. Anthropologist. Yeah.
Perhaps.
Okay.
But just the way we would break down the time of day, and then we break it down to a week, and then we break it down to a year, then we break it down to a
seasons,
season,
especially seasons,
and to a decade. So there's bigger blocks, because time is, also like of the material realm, and so they break it down in massive blocks, and they say these.
I just
springtime
question. You're going on and on.
I thought I can get. I was trying to get a little scientific for our community.
Okay, but I'm just saying, if we don't have that much time for you to explain what a yuga is.
It's the yuga of sort of springtime. Things are good. People are good. People are spiritual.
That's Satya Yuga. The Satya Yuga.
Yeah.
It's the first in the cycle.
Yeah.
And there's in other words, when we read Bhagavatam, it talks about time in much, the time that generally when humans are speaking, they're talking about, okay, there's days, there's months, there's years, maybe there's centuries, even millennia. But we don't really have history that goes beyond that. So we don't really use terms that go beyond that. But eons.
You can keep zooming out.
But with Bhagavatam, they're going to zoom out, and they're going to talk about a much broader, vast amounts of time. So they have measurements called yugas, but the yugas are like seasons. There's 4 of them. So the Satya Yuga is like the spring. Then you have Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and the Yuga that we're in now, Kali Yuga.
Summer and autumn.
Yeah, yeah. And
now we're in a frigid winter of Kali Yuga.
A frigid winter of Kali Yuga, yeah. And it's described that the qualities of people, their abilities, their qualities, the atmosphere, it changes in each of these yugas. In the Satya Yuga, it's a very pure age. People have very peaceful minds and so on. So it says here in this verse, it doesn't exactly say austerity. It says that whatever results are obtained in the Satya Yuga by meditating on Lord Vishnu, through meditation, right? Which generally involves austere living. All right, but people could just sit and meditate deeply and connect with Lord Vishnu in the Satya Yuga. And
we're a distracted culture, not practical now.
It's
so practical.
Very difficult for us to practice because our minds are not, our lifespans are not as long, our minds are not as peaceful, the atmosphere is much more distracting. So that particular Yuga Dharma, it's called, right? The Dharma for the Yuga, for Satya Yuga was that kind of meditation, where you just sit peacefully, you go into deep focus, and you hold your mind on Lord Vishnu, and you see the form, and you commune with Lord Vishnu through meditation. That was the Yuga Dharma of the Satya Yuga, the Dharma for Satya Yuga. Then in the Treta Yuga, what's the Yuga Dharma? Raghunath?
Treta Yuga?
Treta
Temple
Yuga.
worship. Temple worship.
No, that's Dwapara Yuga. But for Treta Yuga,
meditation. No, I don't.
Think Daksha. We're talking about this stuff recently.
Oh, yeah, sacrifice.
Sacrifices. These ceremonies. These like elaborate religious ceremonies.
Elaborate rituals.
Elaborate ritual. And then in the Dwapara Yuga, it's mentioned that the Yuga Dharma was serving the Lord's lotus feet, right? And that's referring to temple worship that you're speaking of.
Right.
So
even when we have temple worship going on in Kali Yuga, it's really done with mantra, because this is I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. Kaustubha is about to explain Kali Yuga.
Yeah. So
mantra.
I'll read the whole verse now. Yeah. Whatever results were obtained in the Satya Yuga by meditating on Vishnu, in the Treta Yuga by performing sacrifices, and in the Dwapara Yuga by serving the Lord's lotus feet, can be obtained in Kali Yuga simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mantra, right? Hare Kirtanat. So the Yuga Dharma for the age that we live in, the idea is that, we don't have, as was mentioned earlier, we don't have a peaceful atmosphere. We don't have peaceful minds. We have short lifetimes. We have a hard time getting focused. We could try and try and try. We don't enter into that state of trance, and it would be a very rare individual that accomplishes that. It's not the Dharma for this age. And then Treta Yuga, they perform these sacrifices. we don't even have the quality ingredients to offer in the sacrifice anymore. Like everything's impure in this age, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The things that they would offer and the abilities that they had, like they talk about, we've been reading about Daksha that they would sacrifice animals, but they weren't sacrificing animals like killing them. That's like some warped Kali Yuga, imitation of what they were doing. They were placing the animal in the fire, but the same animal would come out in a brand new body, revived, rejuvenated. We can't do that nowadays. It's not the Yuga Dharma for this age, right?
And what we do have, we're so unqualified in so many other ways for meditation. I mean, I was just thinking about meditation. We used to walk places. If I wanted to go to Boston, you would walk to Boston. You'd ride a horse to Boston. Just like sometimes for some reason the kids might walk downtown or we might walk into town. It's going to take a couple hours. When you walk, you see things differently than when you drive. You notice trees, you notice houses, you notice fences, you notice things that you don't see. We don't even realize how fast-paced our world is. When they first paved roads, that changed everything. When they made an automobile, that changed everything. When they got the internet, that changed everything. And now it's just become a new normal. And what's the new normal? Super duper fast. So there is no peace for the mind in Kali Yuga. If you want to sit in meditation, good luck. I got to do 5 minutes of meditation and 5 minutes of good luck. The best way, and this isn't my thing, I don't know much, but the sages say the best way is this mantras. Mantras are powerful. You can still do it. You can chant. You can take your bead bag. Right? We went for a japa walk today. We just walked up the road and chanted. You can walk to work and chant. You can sit and chant. You can do all these things and chant. We can still do that. You don't need pure ingredients for a fire yagya or an elaborate temple even. And even when we do, I did a little temple worship this morning in my own house.
Okay.
It's all done with mantras. It's all done with mantras as well. Because there's so many unclean things about how we live in this world. It wouldn't even equate to the efficacy that you would need in these previous ages to make it effective in the previous ages. So
the Yuga Dharma for this age is the kirtan. It's in particular that Sankirtan. We get together with people. We all have one same common motive going into it, that we want to glorify God, we want to sing God, we want to commune with God, and we do it through chanting God's names. And when it's all done together, when everyone does it all in harmony, right? And that, when I say harmony, I don't just mean like musical harmony, but I mean like from the heart. When everybody is coming from that same place, then it has a very, very powerful effect. And we call that a sacrifice, right? It's a sacrifice for this age. We could try to do the elaborate sacrifices that the Brahmanas were doing in Treta Yuga, but we're just incapable. They were scientists, right? They would chant their mantras, like, because they were doing that particular practice, their mantras had to be precise, right? Like it was creating a vibration in the ether that would have a particular scientific effect and produce something. We're so weak at this kind. We can't even pronounce things correctly. We don't have the patience. We don't have the knowledge. We don't have the austerity. We don't, all that it takes to do that. We're really weak in these things. So what we have to do is say we're all a bunch of dented cans in this age, and that's where Bhagavatam starts, right?
It's like transcendence for dummies.
Yeah, well, in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, there's that verse where the sages, they turn to Sutta Goswami and they say, you know what, this age, it was right at the beginning of the Kali Yuga. And they were trying to do something that was going to bring good for the people of the Kali Yuga. And they turned to Sutta Goswami and they said, Manda Sumanda Mata Yo Manda Bhagya Upadritaha. They're saying that in this age, the age of Kali, everyone has short lives, right? Their lives are short, so you don't get enough time to culture to become expert at it, right?
Right.
They're quarrelsome, they're lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all,
check.
And above all,
always disturbed. Even Mara got that one too.
Always disturbed. Let me mention it yesterday. Yeah, so it's like, so we can try to pretend that we're not, or we could accept that we are this, that the word, and everything you're saying is what you said, Raghunath, was just like one tiny little thing, but it helps understand, right? We don't walk anymore. If you walked everywhere, it would affect your mind. It would slow your mind down. It would make you more in tune with nature. It would, but we don't. We zip around in these automobiles or airplanes, and you know, and it's affecting our mind. And you know, we watch these. You know, I remember when music videos first came out. You know,
Yeah,
it took them
that's
a
when
little
it all
while.
fell apart.
Video killed the
Serious?
radio star. Yeah, right.
No, I mean, it just became okay. What are you gonna say?
Well, I was going to say that at first they didn't know what they were doing. So usually what the musicians did was they kind of like put a fake stage and they acted like they're on stage. And then the directors and stuff started to develop more things. And very quickly they got to this place where it's like just quick clips, right? Like
Quick clips.
switch,
That's
switch,
what
switch,
it is.
switch,
MTV started the quick editing.
Yeah.
Watch a TV show from the 60s. They're like the most boring shows you'd ever watch. Andy Griffith's show, you know, My Mother, the Car, you know, all these like super slow, The Ghost of Mrs. Muir. It was like super slow moving shows.
Yeah.
Right now, you know, or watch the remake of these movies from like the 70s or 80s. They're very fast. And now it's a TikTok video. It's like very fast and very short because that's all my attention span can take.
So you know, we can, and even, you know what, like for instance, say within the modern day Bhakti movement, you have brahmanas who do like Vedic ceremonies, right? And they dress up, you know, they got like the fancy clothes that they put on for it, you know, like maybe like a real, like a silk, like they got a real, you know, one of those dhotis with the big fat borders on them, you know.
Yeah,
right.
I like those. I like those.
Okay, and then you get like a silk, like the brighter and, you know, more brash the color, the better. You wrap that silk wrapper around your waist, right?
Yeah, those are good. Those are good.
Little
Some
pop,
jewels
right?
in your
Some
fingers,
pop. Well, that's what I
perhaps.
say. Then you get some jewels, but you know, you got all your astrological reasons why you're wearing those jewels. And maybe even you got like Tulsi earrings on. You were sporting those at the beginning of our
Yeah, I was.
Wisdom of the Sages.
I was.
You were sporting those wooden earrings, and then you got, you know, maybe some special necklaces and kavachas on your arms. You know, with, you know, and all these things are fine and they're good and they're pure and they're special, but the fact is like, you know, it's not simply by putting on those clothes does one truly become a brahmana. Does one become peaceful and you know, you have wisdom, you know. And so we have to be careful that it's not all just a show, you know, that we're not just like putting on a show, you know. And life will, and Krishna will be kind to people that are you know, doing this and put their lives through situations to kind of like purify them, you know. But my point is that we could pretend that we're not quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and always disturbed, you know, and try to do the dharmas from the previous ages. Or we could accept that we are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, you know, unlucky, and always disturbed, and with humility, saying, "I am a dented can." Perform Sankirtan. You sing to God. You glorify God with love, and in the mood that I just need your mercy. I need your help. You know, I don't deserve it. I am dented, but I'm just begging for it because I know it's my nature. I know it pleases you. It's what I really want deep down inside. Even though my mind is so disturbed and polluted with all different kind of desires, beyond that, I know I want my mind to be free of all that, and I just want to absorb my mind in your names and be purified by it. That when we sing and we chant, that's the Yuga Dharma. Because the age is so screwed up, we need this simple and direct and very powerful, potent method of transformation. And so that's the Sankirtan Yagna that we do in this age. All right. I think we're almost
lovely. I
done.
didn't even think we finished we didn't even finish all our questions, did we?
We did. That was the last question.
Oh, we did. That was the last one. Okay, I guess we're going to call this the Karuna show.
It was the Karuna show.
Today? It was the
Karuna
Karuna show. She had a lot of questions. She was building up. She's 8 years old. She wants the answers to life.
Yeah.
What were you questioning when you were 8?
I think just like, you know,
toys. How can I get more
probably
toys?
like food, you know, like, yeah, like when is mom going to bring home some food that I want to eat or something like that?
Can I have popcorn tonight? Can I stay up to 8:30 tonight?
I wasn't reading Narada-Bhakti-Sutra.
And I wasn't inquiring about, it's interesting. You talk to someone like Karuna who's asking these questions at 8. That's a unique birth. It's a very unique birth, you know.
Way to go, Karuna. Good birth.
It's good birth. Good on you.
You're doing good. We're
All
counting
right.
on you, Karuna. You know, not to put any pressure on, but we're
No
expecting
pressure,
you to
but
become
there's
a big guru
peacock
someday.
throne and a crown waiting for you. Whenever you're willing to accept that scepter, the world is waiting for you.
Okay.
All righty.
So you got a special interview tomorrow, Raghunath, right? You're not going to tell us who it is.
Oh yeah, we got an interview day today, but I'm going to keep it a secret. I'm not going to tell you who.
All right.
Okay.
It's a secret one,
Tomorrow.
but people
Secret
can tune
interview
in
day
tomorrow.
8 a.m. We'll see you.
Okay. All right. That's it, right?
All right. And that's it. Mara, anything you want to share? We don't do takeaways today. All right. Well, that's it. If you got questions, you can always write us here at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. We'll get back to you. Oh, look at this kid. Oh, he gave me it's a great day for a great day today. That's my
Look at
8-year-old.
that. That's sweet.
He's a nice kid. Funky's here.
I think we had one takeaway today, right? Pride is a love blocker.
Pride is a love blocker. That's a good. Thanks, Karuna, for all those questions. Yeah, you send your questions in, and tomorrow 8 a.m. and then we're back. I can't even tell you. We're gonna figure it out tomorrow when we got to go this week. I can't say, but I'm just saying we got to figure out the time this week for our Zoomers. If you want to join us live on Zoom, you can do it. Just email Mara for the secret codes. Then you can get into these secret chambers also, and we can see each other in the morning. Like I'm looking at everybody right now. And they don't even know, but I'm enlarging your screen and looking around your house.
Hey, we got the dance cam. We got Nitai Lieberman going here.
Oh, Nitai Lieberman's here. Nitai, I want you to ask some questions too.
Okay. If you got any questions, send them in, Nitai.
9 or 10, I think.